basically on a quest to empower every single possible connection between the physical world and the digital world. And we believe that it is possible to make it faster, make it easier, and help people take more useful decisions, and sometimes even, of course, have fun when interacting with the world. So let me show you a few examples. Is there sound here? My words. So there's music here, and the music would make it much more exciting. But let's start with this first one. So Print is a company who raised above $1 million in Kickstarter and developed a case that you can check on our booth to print actual physical images. And here you have other examples powered by Catchoom, interacting with the real world in this case, so leaving, let's say, tags onto the real world. That's what Taxi does. Music works, right? Audio without video, video without audio. Well, so I was saying before that we are on this quest to 10 billion interactions, and this led me to work on this presentation to help other companies build their own products. So this is pretty much how I will spend the following 40 minutes talking about what and why you should consider building one. Some best practices from what we've seen of others doing that. So we have a number of customers who are already doing this. And then I will enter more into our APIs and SDKs. Okay? So let me start with giving you some context of what I mean. So this is taken from Wikipedia. A digital agency is a business that basically does consultancy. So they do projects one by one, delivering mobile projects with a certain number of certain amount of creativity. Whereas what I mean by an agency service or an agency software service is a product that enables marketers to create their own content. So it would allow teams to create it. So it would allow the same company to create the creativity if need be, or be it a self-serve platform. Okay? And sometimes this service comes together with an app, a mobile app, that serves as an umbrella for all the content that is distributed through that service. So let's consider the differences between running a digital agency or running as a product company. So the first one is quite obvious. You would start to develop specific features for each one of your customers every time. Okay, so we have seen some examples of this in the previous session. So for instance, the project in Rome, that was a specific feature. It was developed for that. Whereas if you build the product, you will start becoming more agnostic of what's the specific use case, and you will start developing a layout of common features. The second one is it's project driven, so every time you have a new customer, you have a new project. Whereas if you build a product, you start having your own roadmap. And I will talk a little bit about how develop this roadmap based on customers and their needs. In terms of your growth, so in one case you have a variable cash flow problem. If your brand and your agency is known, you will probably have a lot of projects, but if you're struggling to get into there, it's more challenging. Whereas if you build a product, you do have to spend on marketing, but then you have predictive recurring revenue. And in one case you have short-term happy customers, which means that you deliver what they ask exactly as they define it. In the other case, you will have to rely on long-term word-of-mouth growth, which is also challenging, and you will have to figure out how to market your brand, how to sell your product. So I'm jumping right onto the next part. So I hope by now you've already started thinking about what it would mean for you to build such a product. So I think the best is if I start with some guidelines. So this is what I listed as the 5 best practices that I've identified when building your service. So the first one would be to embrace lean startup practices, and I will talk about this in a minute. The second one would be to turn custom developments into new features and how to cope with that, like the 2 worlds simultaneously. The third one is to think about integrating several vendors. So I will talk about Catchoom and how to integrate Catchoom, but actually it's good that you have a broader look at the market. The fourth would be to be local. And the fifth one is related to the tools that you integrate and understanding and knowing the partner that you have there. Could you raise hands? How many of you have heard of the lean startup motion? So pretty much half of the room. So the basic principle of lean startup is to iterate continuously over your ideas, to build them, and then to test them with customer feedback. And then based on customer feedback, you can identify if any new idea that you introduce into your product was useful or not. And by doing this over a cycle, you can start very small with a very small set of features and keep growing. Okay. Famous cases, for instance, was Dropbox. As a company, it started with a very simple case. I think it was only available on Windows, and then it started evolving into what we know today as a quite significant big company. So the third one is, okay, we embrace the lean startup methodologies. What can we do with custom development? So the advantage that you have if you're already running as a digital agency is that you know your customers and you know how they think and you know the kind of things that they ask for. So it's very rare that they will ask for something that you have not. So if a new customer comes or a new opportunity comes, it's very rare that you haven't heard of that before, okay? Or you have seen it on I don't know, some other company has done it before. So the practice that I would recommend you is to consider building those custom developments when you can reuse them as a new feature for your product. So think about something that is common enough, or the common denominator of that new feature, and try to plug it into your product. And the best part is that you can get paid for that. So you have the best of the 2 worlds, in the sense that if a customer comes and says, okay, I love your platform, but could you add me geolocation, for instance? And say, okay, let's add geolocation. I think there will be enough companies like you that will have that. So I will add geolocation into the product and then ask for, okay, but this is in my roadmap, I was planning this for next quarter or I don't know, next year, but if you want to do it now, if you want to have it now, why don't you pay me for this service? Okay, so you get the best of the 2 worlds. The third one is about integrating several tools. I think this gives much greater flexibility. So I think that we have to recognize, and I'm the first to recognize, that Catchoom is strong in certain things, but it's not strong in every single thing. Okay? So for instance, we do not do face recognition, we do not do OCR. And definitely we don't do anything about beacons. So if you're thinking that your customer, I don't know, is in retail and beacons make a lot of sense, try to add that to your platform. But first understand the vendors, the tools that you're acquiring, choose wisely, choose the right partner for you. And I think that ultimately by integrating several tools, your product as a whole will stand out, okay? So sometimes we have questions like, okay, if I build my own platform, how do I differentiate from Catchoom? Like, we are reaching almost the same people, but it's not exactly true. And one of the reasons has to do with the fact that you can enhance your platform with many other features. We are strong in computer vision, we are strong in image processing, image recognition, augmented reality tracking, but we are not strong in beacons, for instance. And I don't think this is a path that we are going to chase. So if you have an opportunity to add that to your platform, go for it. The second reason for that is that you can be local. Okay, so as Catchoom, as a platform, I'm obliged to be global. Okay, so we have customers from all continents. We have people visiting our site and trying our tools from every remote place that you can imagine, because we are a platform for others. Okay, but you have the advantage that you have a local network and a local sales team that can, for instance, if you are in the Paris area, or if you are in Berlin, or you are in London, I'm sure you have a network, I'm sure you have connections that you can use. It's very difficult that we, as a vendor, take on that role, so you can take advantage of that. And just do not forget that you have an advantage by translating, by localizing your product. So I don't know if you checked on one of the videos in the show reel was from a Polish company. The content, the dashboard, everything is in Polish, and that's for their customers. They don't necessarily want to enter into an account and start creating content in English just because the vendor wants to be global. In their case, they are taking advantage of that. And the last advice is to know your technology partner. And here, this is based on our own experience with our customers. Okay, I think that it is interesting that you dive deep inside the offering and don't stop at the examples or the demo software. And one of the reasons why I say this is because there's a certain tendency to, okay, I looked at them all and they didn't fulfill my requests. The question is, have you picked up the phone and talked to these people? Because there are engineers behind those tech providers that maybe they don't, like, you have different terminology, but at the end you can achieve the same thing. So it is important to understand that as vendors we don't have like a tutorial or an example for every single corner case, but your ideas can be implemented. So if you talk to us and you reach out to us, in our case you have direct access with the engineers that build the software, the APIs and the SDKs, so I think that we can help you with that. Now moving to a few selected examples. I picked some companies powered by Catchoom, and actually if you want to talk to Dutch Rose Media, the one on the bottom left, they are here on the next room, so you can ask them for honest feedback about how to work with Catchoom. But I will talk about the three more that are in this slide. So the first one is Alive. Alive is a platform by Times Internet. This is the largest publisher in India. And as a publisher of the Times newspaper, they designed their own platform. Okay, it has its dashboard, pretty much like what you've known before, like it's content creator. You can drag and drop stuff. And interestingly enough, they have started to build other stuff. No? So, for instance, one of the things that they included recently is visual search. So, the capacity of scanning an object and the app tells you what type of object that is. Okay, that's not from Catchoom. So if you scan a mouse, it will recognize that that's a mouse and then search shots online where you can buy that. Okay, these kind of functionalities. And second, I found this interesting. They considered Catchoom because they could fall back to low-end devices and networks. So in India, there's still a significant amount of cell phones that run on 2G, that are feature phones, but they still have a camera. Okay, so if you have interactive content and not all your audience has high-end devices, which would run an interactive experience with augmented reality media, you can always identify the device and fall back to just running the image recognition component. And this is something that they can do with CraftAR from Catchoom. Second example is Evolution Suite from Innovae. This is a Spanish company. And this service is designed for sales teams. So this is not a consumer app. But the advantage is that it integrates it integrates with the CRM, so the sales team has information from the customer. It has training and maintenance collateral that they can show when they visit customers or key accounts. So the content is synced from the cloud that they have, that is connected with the cloud of CraftAR, such that it can stream content to the app, and the app runs offline. And of course, it has the admin side, so that's why this is a good example, because they needed a dashboard for the sales managers to be able to control the access, have analytics, etc. All of this wouldn't be possible by accessing directly to CraftAR, even though the information is the same. But the information that is in this suite is customized, is presented in a way that is thought for sales teams, in this case for pharmaceuticals. And the third example that I wanted to pick is a French company called Onprint. And their service is primarily for content editors and publishers. It includes Catchoom, so image recognition, but also visual search for 3D objects, OCR, and other technologies. And it has their own developer APIs. Okay, so that's even possible. So we have our APIs for developers, but they also have APIs for developers, because as a platform, what they are doing is to not to spend time on the technology, on the underlying technology itself, but more on servicing their customers. Okay. So now I'm going to enter into explaining how to do this with our APIs and SDK. So don't worry, this is not like super technical. It's more of an overview of the toolbox that we provide to developers. So CraftAR comes with a set of things, and here's kind of an overview of everything that it entails. So on the top, on the left column, I show all the SDKs that we have. So there's the tool for image recognition, whether you want to run cloud-based or on-device, the Augmented Reality SDK, and the one that we released and announced this morning, the Pro SDK, which combines all of the above. Then the cloud service has a content creator, so that's a web tool. I will talk about it in a minute, and it's a content management system, so you upload all the content there, manage it, prepare it, etc. And it has its own API, so you can have your own platform, talk to our platform. Okay. And then there's a whole support center, so we have a community that we, of course, respond whenever there's no one else responding. We have developers and developer guides and tutorials, and of course you can talk to us directly. So how does it look like in practice? So we provide the entire pipeline from choosing the technology to publishing, and I will go step by step. So first you have to choose the type of experience, which actually means the type of technology that is behind it. So on the left I show an example of scanning a bottle of whiskey. So that would be the pure scanning. So you're not trying to trigger any, you're agnostic to what you're trying to trigger. What you want is to find that label inside a database of labels that you have previously uploaded to the system. And on the right is what you typically know of augmented reality, so being able to overlay on top of, for instance, in this case, a catalog, a 3D model. And we provide our SDKs in a number of operating systems and plugins. In terms of creating content, the first thing that I explain always is how we structure data, how we structure the content management. So at the very first level, you would have your own app. And this app can be a mobile app, but it can also be a web app. So we have customers that use our technology directly from a website. Then an app is typically associated with a collection. And this collection, what it does is structure all the data for typically that customer inside the group. So collections have items, and items can be of two types: image recognition items and augmented reality items. The augmented reality items have typically one reference image, so it's the one that will trigger the experience, and together with that you will have whatever content you have associated, and of course all the tracking components that happen seamlessly behind the scenes. So by the scene, what I mean is if you attach a video or if you attach a 3D model, etc., this goes together with this item. And in terms of image recognition, you can have multiple images for each item. The idea behind this is, for instance, if you're trying to recognize logos, sometimes companies have a white over black or a black over white, and both would trigger typically the same link to a website. Or if you have products and they have two sides, for instance, a cereal box, you want to be able to recognize on both sides that you don't need to ask the user to point in a certain angle. This also goes beyond when you are trying to recognize landmarks like street art and you want to be agnostic of the time of the day or where exactly they took a picture from. In terms of creation tools, we can group them in these three. So you have the CraftAR Creator. This is a web-based interface that allows you to see it in 3D, so you can navigate in 3D. And it's what you see is what you get kind of interface. So here you would load the model, upload the model, drag it into the scene, resize it, rotate it, etc. Same for video, same for images that you want to put on top. The one in the middle is what we call the management API. And the management API is thought for bulk operations and automation. So typically, imagine you have your own dashboard that you present to your customers, and every time they upload an image, that image flies to our service, it creates a new item, uploads the image, associates it with whatever URL or whatever content, and then this item is created and your customers have a ready go scan. We have client libraries in PHP, Python, .NET, and Ruby on Rails. And it's documented as a RESTful API, so if you wanted to implement it in another language, you could do as well. And the last one is the Unity plugin. And we have Unity, the mobile component, but we also have inside the Unity plugin an inspector that allows you to create your scene and upload it directly to CraftAR Cloud. Okay? So what this allows you is to have applications in Unity that do not have all the assets inside, but they are loaded after a cloud image recognition. Okay? So it broadens up the possibilities. If you compare the CraftAR Creator with the Unity plugin, the difference is obvious. The CraftAR Creator is for more simple type of interactions, and Unity is beyond limits, anything that you can think of, because it includes all the scripting that you provide. And in terms of development and publishing, so the first is that you can develop for free. And we provide native mobile app development in iOS and Android for all our SDKs. For image recognition in the cloud, you can use our JavaScript library. So we have a customer, for instance, that instead of having a mobile app, actually they have a mobile app, but they turn it into just a web browser that loads their website in a responsive, using responsive design. So what it does is, as soon as the website identifies that the size is according to a tablet or a cell phone, it shows an icon of a camera. So this, through HTML, it opens the camera and you can scan. In this case, it's for wine, so you can scan a bottle of wine and it shows you the product page. We also provide a Cordova plugin for all our SDKs, and underlying Cordova is the iOS and Android native ones, and the same for Unity. In the case of Unity, it's only for augmented reality, but the SDK includes everything, so it also includes cloud image recognition. In terms of content distribution, so let me explain you the three use cases here. So the first one is what we call cloud-based. So the idea here is that instead of embedding into the application all the content sits in the cloud. And at any time that the user scans an object, there's the image coming from the camera is sent to the cloud, we find the right content, and then we stream it back to your app. Whether it's just a URL, because it's image recognition, or metadata, or it's the whole tracking scene, 3D model, etc. Okay? Advantages of cloud. Any change is available immediately. So think of it as releasing a new website. I mean, the minute you push publish, the people who visit your website see the new version. Okay? So this is very well suited for magazines, for instance, that they have new issues every month. And the advantage is that if you did any mistake, you can correct it. The second one is on device. So the idea here is that everything is offline, embedded into the application. And the advantage here, of course, is that it runs offline. Some people prefer this mode, especially if they are running a digital agency and they do one project, because that's a closed budget, right? So you prepare all the assets, you push it to the App Store or Google Play, the project is over, the client pays, end of story. Maybe there's some maintenance, but that's it. So it's very well suited for that. But we also provide a mechanism to synchronize, which means that you can open it to several things. So first is, you can have an empty app, and all the content is waiting in the cloud, and the advantage of this is the app will be much smaller in size. Then the minute the user logs in or starts the app, you start downloading, streaming the content, and then the app is ready. Okay, that's option number one. Option number two is you put some stuff into the app, say instead of 10 megas, it's 20 megas, and you assume that the user will still download it, but then the remaining 50 megas is waiting in the cloud. Or you're missing a deadline, you push it to the App Store, you know it will take you 2 weeks to be approved, so anyway, I still have time to prepare the assets, right? So you take that time, you prepare everything in the cloud, and the app will know how to synchronize with the cloud. Okay, so it will ask for any changes between the local copy and the remote copy. Okay. And the third one is what we call extended search. So this graph, what it shows, if you see it properly, the head of a lot of popularity and a long tail of, say, products that are not so frequently demanded, you can decide to put the head onto the device and the long tail in the cloud, so that the application can, for instance, scan, first look for it locally, and if it doesn't find it, then start looking it in the cloud. Again, here you can synchronize, so the head could be changing, so every month you have new data that you can renew. So I told you that you should know your vendor better, so I thought it was worth that you see some faces behind the logo of Catchoom. So this is part of the team. We have about 5 people working only on computer vision and doing the farthest the edge research of the company. And we have 4 people working on the infrastructure, so the SDKs, the APIs, etc. The rest of us work more on the day-to-day management. And I also wanted to give you a couple of quotes from customers, because I think that they show where we stand and how we feel so passionate about our customers. So the first one is from Print, is those who develop the cases. They contacted us about a year ago, and they were using another vendor, okay? But that vendor, an augmented reality vendor, but that vendor was not sufficiently delivering what they needed. And of course they wanted to be closer to our tech team, because the kind of development that they needed was pushing the boundaries of our SDK. So we worked with them, and right now we're proudly powering their application, where if you have seen it, you can print out a picture and scan it, and see a video that you can also record while taking that picture. All of this is using the management API, the image recognition for the cloud. So whenever you share a picture with someone else, that request is done through the cloud. When you're scanning your own pictures, it runs on-device image recognition. If you also want to show the video, it uses the augmented reality part. So this is now enabling them to do something that they were not able to do before. So for instance, they realized that many people were printing pictures while at the bar or at the club with friends. And this is typically locations where you don't have that much network. In the case of Taxi, is this application where you could see that they were allowing people to create user-generated tags on top of real-world objects. And in this case, they were using Metaio before. I'm pretty much sure that you all know Metaio, but in this case, they were happy that our APIs were much easier to integrate. So a few takeaways, and then I will open it for questions. So I think there's an advantage, and I do believe there is an advantage on building your own product, your own software as a service. Build it with lean startup, drive this development by iterating with customers, and that can help you cut development costs and predict your revenue. The second one is think about the technology partner. Integrate several technologies to make your application and your product stand out, but know those partners, know them very well. And CraftAR by Catchoom is such a platform. We think we provide great flexibility for your apps. So we're here to help you. We have a booth across the main area, and we are happy to take to demonstrate to you the different things that we have. Thank you very much.
So there is some time left for some questions. So if there are any, I'll be happy to give you the microphone.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Do you have a roadmap for development of your SDK? Because we saw a lot of stuff about image recognition. So this is the main part of your SDK. What's your roadmap? Will you go further on and do SLAM or object recognition, or just focus on this image recognition part?
Okay, very well. So, we do have a roadmap for the next 5 years, where we have a number of key areas where we want to develop further our technology. One of them is industrial applications, and we showed how we could recognize a pipe at the Augmented World Expo in Santa Clara in June. So we have developed that technology, but it's not ready as a product, so we are not selling it as an SDK, if you want. So there's one track that is related to industrial applications, and the other track is related to fashion and recognizing things like clothes, which is not exactly the same as recognizing a page in a magazine. If you ask me precisely for SLAM or for a very particular feature that maybe another vendor provides us, we take those features very seriously, and we don't implement them unless we think that we can do a very, very good job. For us, for instance, today at the show I was talking to other companies that develop and provide 3D object recognition and tracking, more tracking than recognition, because in recognition we are stronger. But for us it doesn't make sense to do everything ourselves. I think that if we have an opportunity to partner with another company that has such a technology, we prefer to embrace it or to refer you. This morning I met a guy who was asking for something that I didn't have, and I immediately took him by the hand and said, okay, talk to these guys and then talk to these guys. Because I think that as an industry, there's so much that we can do together. We have our own roadmap, but we don't plan to implement every single option that is out there. More questions?
I have one, and I'm very sorry I had some problems to solve with my team back in Italy, so maybe I've lost attention. But what I wanted to ask is, among your users, was your SDK never being used for some kind of massive cultural heritage project? Because, the theme is
yes.
I care a lot about the theme, and as a European part of this industry, I think the market could be valuable if well driven.
Mm-hmm. So we do have customers that do things that we don't know. just for the record.
You don't want to.
So, I mean, like looking or inspecting all the images that people upload, and there's several hundred thousand images, and some of them are separated into millions, so we don't look at them all. Honestly, I think that in cultural heritage, the challenge is that sometimes you actually talked about it in your presentation. I think that it does require some effort on understanding the specific technology that fits into that area. So whenever they see that Catchoom serves the purpose, then they contact us. But it's not as if we were specifically pushing, because we know that, for instance, in your case, we have nothing to offer. So, yeah.
Because from what I know, there's a growing request from now museums, some kind, understood what augmented reality can offer, thanks to good use cases. So we are all expecting this request to
I think museums did realize that. Actually, with museums, what happens is that they start to have a lot of digital assets, and those digital assets are difficult to then make them available to the visitors. So what we found is that some museums started to see that they could connect these two pieces together and take much more advantage of the digital assets. And honestly, I think that consumers are now so used to video content and audio content that for them visiting a museum has to be part of an interactive experience. It cannot be static anymore.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Cool. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will be at our booth now. Thank you.
So sadly, I have to announce that the incoming session was cancelled, and so we are all free. Enjoy the party and the exhibition. Thank you.